All right, guys, welcome back for another edition of Motivational Monday. If you like this earlier format, Ricky's been getting them out, I think, at 8 a.m. So if you like that, drop in the comments and say that, that you appreciate that earlier deal. It kind of makes sense to have Motivational Monday drop, first thing Monday morning to kind of get you through the grind. This Motivational Monday, if you watch one of our previous videos, it's going to give you a lot better insight to that. So we did a video about a year ago of my dad going to the U.S. Nationals, and there was a bunch of stuff that unfolded with that. So if you haven't watched that, I would encourage you to go back. Ricky probably drop a link here to where you can click on that and go watch that video. So watch that video first and then jump back into this conversation. So last year we went to the U.S. Nationals like we do most years. My dad has ran every U.S. Nationals except for a couple since like 1974. Raced the same class since 1974. He races NHRA Superstock. If you don't know, that's where our name from. We've totally stolen it from him. His car was called the Tin Soldier, so made a perfect name for a shop that was going to build race cars. So my dad's definitely given us a bunch of legacy. He's a really good drag racer in his own right. But now, at the time of the story, when this first takes place, he's now 79. He's 79 years old. He's now 80. Okay, so he's not a spring chicken, even though he feels like it most of the time. So at 79, we went up for the U.S. Nationals. All the boys came. We had a great weekend. Ended up winning a Wally. What he won the Wally in was called class. So the way Superstock works is you have the big class of Superstock, and then you have smaller classes divided up into that. And the way that it's divided up is just different letters. So we're not going to get into all that. But basically, out of all the cars in his class, he won, and you run that heads up. So typically, Superstock is a bracket race after qualifying, but this class eliminations is all run heads up. And actually, that's why we love to do what we do. My dad gave us that foundation of liking the heads up stuff. But anyway, we ended up winning. What would that have been, Rick? 2022? Yes. So we won in 2022. But we missed one of the rules. Part of that, honestly, is just as my dad's getting older, he's going to hate that I say this, but I'll say it anyway because we're truthful on Motivational Mondays. He's just getting older. He missed some stuff. It was totally on him. The car ended up being underweight for the class that we were racing. So for the first time since 1974, they kicked Ronnie out. Never happened before, ever. We actually had the Wally, and they came back and they took it back. The tech guys were awesome about it. It was really, it was a big deal, but they made it not a big deal. They were fantastic. But again, to be completely honest with you, it was pretty tough to watch that happen. My dad's 70, at this point he's 79 years old. He's in decent health, but man, he's 79 years old. So the reality of it sitting in of man, this might have been my dad's last chance to get another one. We may not be able to come and do this again. Every year within our family, it's kind of a running joke that this is Ronnie's last year. It's been his last year for 5 years. But this one really felt like, man, it might be. So the thought of ending his career that's been really riddled with a bunch of wins, a bunch of history, so to end it on getting your Wally taken away really wasn't something that he wanted to do. So we left there, and the crazy thing is the dude he needed a pacemaker. So his heart was all jacked up all weekend, his oxygen levels, all this stuff was all jacked up. So we leave the racetrack, and my mom immediately takes him to the doctor, and they're like, dude, you need a pacemaker. So shortly after we left the racetrack, the dude is getting a pacemaker installed. And if you haven't been a part of a pacemaker now, they're actually really rad. They sync to your phone, and it's wild. But so he has a pacemaker. About 5 days after he leaves the racetrack, he's got his new deal installed. Starts feeling a lot better, but he still has a pretty long recovery process ahead of him. We weren't able to race anymore in 2022. And then kind of going into, at the end of his birthday's in November. So he turns 80 he had turned 80 in November. And he just had some other health concerns, some stuff with his legs, and he's diabetic, and you know, he's 80. Again, he's 80. I'm going to say that probably a bunch. It's just body's giving out on him, man, which is unfortunate, right? It's part of life. It sucks, but it's just part of it. Ended up having some cancer that came in on his head that he had to get burned off, and just thing after thing. And the thing with Indy is you can't just show up and race the U.S. Nationals. So you have to have so many points to be able to register for the race. So you have to race before you go to the U.S. Nationals. So the task now is to not only get Dad healthy enough to race the U.S. Nationals, we have to get him healthy enough to even race the car a couple times to get to this race, which honestly kind of a daunting task. Anyway, he's going through all this stuff. He figures out that there's a double points race in Columbus. So he can go to one race, he's there for a little bit longer, and it's going to be worth 2 points. And to be honest with you, the 2 points is what he needed. He needed 2 points to get into the race. To be completely honest with you, I wasn't real sure if I really wanted him to do it. His health just wasn't that great. Even with me being at the age that I am, getting in a race car in the middle of the day sucks. I mean, it's hot, dude. You know, you're getting in there when it's 90 degrees. Super stock races in the middle of the day. So, dude, 12 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon is typically when they're going down the racetrack. So as hot as you can imagine that it is, that's when they do it. And the weekend that we were going to Outlaw Armageddon was the same weekend that my dad would have went to Columbus. So in typical my dad fashion, he doesn't even tell me that he's going to Columbus. I figured that out on my way to Outlaw Armageddon. I call my dad, I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm at the racetrack. So he got there, and he to get your points, all you have to do is register and pay, and the car be on site. Well, of course he's there, he wants to race. Well, he driving around the pits to take it to weigh it, all this stuff, he ends up hearing a noise in the engine. So he decides not to race, and he brings the car home. Ends up pulling the motor out. So 80 years old, he's out there pulling the motor out. One of his buddies come over and help him, Casey did. Pulls the motor out, takes it to one of his buddies, a machine shop guy, takes it to Jeff Taylor. They pull it apart. It ends up needing a lifter. So Jeff completely disassembles the engine, rebuilds it, fixes it, does all this stuff, gets it back together for Dad, and then he's got to put it back in the car, back together, do all this stuff. And really, we're talking about a month and a half of the engine being bad, them fixing it, getting it back in the car, and getting ready for Indy. So even a person that's younger, like, that's a lot of work. My dad's garage is it's an oversized 2-car garage. He doesn't have a lift. He doesn't have a bunch of fancy tools. It's pretty bare bones. So, like, man, it was a lot of effort to do this. And then fast forward to the week of the race, they wanted to go test, but really just didn't get the car back together in time. They go up there. I think Dad qualified 4th or 5th out of 160 cars. He ends up winning class and getting his Wally back. And I'm really proud of him, like, we all try to talk him out of it. To be honest with you, I didn't think that it was a good idea for him, just with his age and all this stuff. But my dad never let anyone talk him out of it. There was no change in the dude's mind. Even after all the stuff he had, he just was bound and determined to not let his career end like that. And which was really a beautiful thing. Now, and the weather was like crazy low for the year. Like, we actually were wearing hoodies in the morning, and then it was like 70, 75 degrees on Labor Day weekend in Indianapolis, which is like pretty unheard of, right? Like, it was beautiful. It was just cool, man, to watch him. It wasn't an easy journey, and everything that went in his way, he figured out a way through it, around it, and got it done. And there's a verse in the Bible, and there's a bunch of other context to it, but I'm just going to say one part of it. This is in Acts. It says, your old men will dream dreams. And I think the thing with older people that I've noticed is a lot of times as your body gives away, as you're not able to do as much stuff as you once were able to do, or maybe you're a young person and you struggle with physical ailments, you have things that like cause you not to be able to do the things that you want. A lot of times we get in this mindset, if you have these issues in front of you, that you feel useless, or that you feel like, you're used up. Like look at my dad, he's 80 years old. He's still getting around pretty good, but like he's still dreaming dreams. He still has purpose that he wants to live out, and I think for all of us, like no matter what our issue is, or what, physically, mentally, whatever, like it's important that we continue to dream dreams even when that stuff's in our way, to try to overcome it. And man, it was just a beautiful thing to watch my dad overcome all the things that he had to and walk away without Wally. I don't know if it's his last one. Only time will tell. I don't know if we'll go back again next year. I hope that he's got a few more left in him, but if he doesn't, we're ending it on a win, and we're ending it on a fantastic and beautiful story. So I hope that you can be encouraged by this, that that no matter your circumstance, you can still dream and you can still achieve victory. We love you. Thanks for watching. See you next time.